The Good Samaritan. One day, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. He asked, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus replied, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" The man answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus responded, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." But the man, wanting to justify himself, asked, "And who is my neighbor?" In response to the man's question, Jesus told him this parable. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So, too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Jesus then turned to the expert in the law and asked, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Through this parable, Jesus showed us that being a neighbor is not about proximity or social standing. It is about showing love and mercy to anyone in need, regardless of their background. The Samaritan, traditionally seen as an enemy by the Jewish people, became the hero in Jesus' story because he showed compassion, unlike the priest or Levite, who passed by without helping. The story of the Good Samaritan carries profound lessons about compassion and mercy. At first glance, the priest and Levite seem like the obvious choices to help the wounded man. As religious leaders, one would expect them to act with kindness and charity. However, both chose to avoid the man. Why? Perhaps they were afraid of becoming ceremonially unclean by touching a wounded man, or maybe they simply didn't want to be inconvenienced. Their choices reflect a deeper issue, the self-preservation and pride that often hinder us from showing compassion to others. The Samaritan, on the other hand, was someone the Jewish people typically looked down on. He came from a group of people whom Jews saw as outcasts, yet he was the one who stopped to help. His actions demonstrate that true compassion transcends societal boundaries and prejudices. Despite the cultural tensions between Jews and Samaritans, the Samaritan didn't let their differences stop him from acting with kindness. The Samaritan's actions were not simple gestures of kindness. They were acts of sacrificial love. First, he didn't just give the man some water or call for help. He gave of himself. He bandaged the man's wounds, using his own supplies, oil and wine, to tend his injuries. These were valuable items, especially in that time and place, and to use them for someone else's benefit showed the depth of his care. Next, the Samaritan didn't simply leave the man at the roadside, hoping someone else would help. He went beyond that, taking the wounded man to an inn where he could rest and recover. Even after doing so much, he didn't stop there. The Samaritan continued to show generosity by offering to pay for the man's stay and any additional expenses. This is where we begin to see the true meaning of being a neighbor. A neighbor is not just someone who lives next door or someone you're related to. A neighbor is anyone who is in need of help, regardless of their background, status, or ethnicity. The Samaritan's love knew no bounds. He didn't ask whether the man was a fellow Samaritan, Jew, or Gentile. He simply saw someone in need and acted with mercy. Jesus' challenge to the lawyer was clear. Go and do likewise. He didn't just tell him to think about being kind. He told him to live out that kindness in practical ways, just as the Samaritan did. Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself becomes not just a theory to ponder, but a call to action. It is not enough to say that we love others. We must demonstrate it through tangible acts of kindness. True love goes beyond words. It requires actions that show we care for the well-being of others. The story also illustrates that mercy is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle. The Samaritan did not just help in the moment and walk away. He ensured the man's well-being for the future, taking the time to invest in his recovery and well-being. The Good Samaritan story compels us to examine our own actions. How often do we pass by opportunities to show mercy to others? Are we so busy with our lives that we ignore the needs of those around us? This parable calls us to open our eyes to the people in need, whether they are struggling physically, emotionally, or spiritually. It challenges us to push past our comfort zones, our biases, and our selfishness to help those who need it most. True compassion requires us to go beyond our own comfort and invest in the lives of others, just as the Samaritan did. Jesus used this story to redefine what it means to be a neighbor. It's about showing mercy, kindness, and love, even when it's difficult, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. As we reflect on this parable, let's ask ourselves, who is our neighbor? How can we show love and compassion in our everyday lives?